There are some days in your life that change everything. For me, that day came on a random Tuesday afternoon in October. I had been married to my wife Shayna for 5 years. We met back in college, fell in love over late-night study sessions and cheap pizza, and I honestly thought we had built something solid. We had a nice little house in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, 2 cars in the driveway, a garden she loved tending on weekends. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. But things had shifted in the past few months. Shayna was coming home late, more often always, with excuses about work projects and deadlines. She seemed distant, distracted, but I trusted her. I loved her. That Tuesday I left work early because I was feeling sick. My head was pounding and my boss told me to go home and rest. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed a car I did not recognize parked on the street. My heart started racing. Something felt wrong. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house was quiet, except for sounds coming from upstairs. What I saw next paralyzed me completely. Before I continue with what happened that day, let me ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching this from. And if you are new here, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because what happens next in this story is going to take you on a journey you will not forget. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end. I climbed the stairs slowly, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. The sounds were clearer now. Laughter. Shayna's laughter, but in a tone I had never heard before. Light, carefree, intimate. My hand trembled as I reached for the bedroom door handle. I pushed it open. There in our bed, the bed we had picked out together 3 years ago, was my wife with another man. They were tangled in the sheets, completely unaware of my presence for a split second. Then Shayna's eyes met mine. Her face went from pleasure to absolute horror in an instant. She screamed and tried to cover herself with the blanket. The man, I recognized him immediately. Derek. He worked with Shayna at her marketing firm. I had met him once at a company holiday party last year. He seemed nice enough then. Now he was scrambling to get out of my bed, his face red with panic and shame. I stood there frozen. My brain could not process what my eyes were seeing. My heart felt like it had stopped beating. My legs were shaking so badly, I thought I might collapse. This could not be real. This could not be happening. Not to us. Not to me. Shayna was crying now, pulling on a robe, saying my name over and over. But I could not hear her properly. Everything sounded muffled, like I was underwater. Derek was trying to get his clothes on as fast as possible. He kept mumbling apologies, not looking at me. I finally found my voice. It came out cold and flat, not sounding like me at all. I told him to get out. He grabbed his shirt and shoes and practically ran past me. I did not move. I just kept staring at Shayna. She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. She kept saying she was sorry, that she could explain that it was not what it looked like. But we both knew that was a lie. It was exactly what it looked like. I finally moved, but only to step back. I could not be in that room anymore. Every breath felt like inhaling broken glass. Shayna followed me out, still crying.